mandate. How to achieve free and fair elections in a COVID-19 environment. Need for balanced and fair play by all stakeholders in the electoral process, from the Electoral Commission, media, police, candidates, voters, judiciary, and political party leaders. Join the Uganda Human Rights Commission this Friday, 23rd October 2020 at 4 p.m. for a live talk show under the theme Safeguarding Human Rights Within the Context of a Hybrid Election. Panelists include Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria, Commissioner, Uganda Human Rights Commission; Bionabie Kamadi, Director, Research, Education and Documentation, Uganda Human Rights Commission. This show is brought to you by the Uganda Human Rights Commission.
On the next episode...
Please, call the doctor! Please, someone call the doctor!
What happened?
I found her unconscious in her house.
I want to let me. I'm going to put an end to you attacking me.
Your brother is my husband, and don't you forget that. We had a difficult day. I'd rather go to bed. Good night, Daniela.
Good night.
This is NTV.
A very good afternoon and welcome to our series, this particular talk show, as we do unpack the role of human rights, or should I say the many roles of human rights as we do lead up to our 2021 general election. Now, the right to take part in the conduct, of course, of public affairs, including the right to vote and stand for election, is a core of democratic governments, based on the will of the people, of course. Genuine elections are thus a necessary and fundamental component of an environment that protects and promotes human rights. The right to vote and be elected in genuine periodic elections is intrinsically linked to a number of other human rights, the enjoyment of which is, of course, crucial to the meaning of the electoral process. These particular prerequisite rights include the rights to freedom from discrimination, the right to freedom of opinion and expression, the right to freedom of association, and of course the peaceful assembly, not forgetting the right to freedom of movement. In the past 2 weeks, we, of course, in partnership with the Uganda Human Rights Commission, have unpacked these particular issues, and today we turn our focus on safeguarding human rights within the context of a hybrid election. Allow me to introduce my panelists today. To my immediate left, Dr. Patricia Achan Okiria, who is the Commissioner, Uganda Human Rights Commission, and of course, to my extreme left, Mr. Bionabie Kamadi, who is the Director, Research, Education and Documentation at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Lady and the gentleman, many thanks for making time to speak to us again.
It's a pleasure. And
Thank you.
Good afternoon to our viewers.
The past 2 weeks have been marred with a lot of writing on my side, taking a lot of notes as the two of you, and other Human Rights Commission staff, Uganda Human Rights Commission staff, just unpack some of the technical issues, and some that are not very technical, but many of us were just oblivious to. Let me start with you, Dr. Achan. The concept of human rights, and of course, the rights that should be safeguarded within the election process or even leading up to the election. Where do we find ourselves at this particular juncture, should I say?
Good evening, viewers, or good afternoon. Thank you very much, Arnold. When we talk about human rights in the context of hybrid elections, first of all, I would like to note that the Commission, the Uganda Human Rights Commission, holds a stake in the upcoming elections, simply because there is a strong link between elections and human rights. And when we talk about elections and human rights, there are a number of human rights issues which are closely intertwined into elections. Elections, first of all, facilitate the realization of citizens' participation in affairs of government through making choice of who their representations should be. Elections facilitate, it gives the citizens an opportunity to exercise their right, because the Constitution says power belongs to the people. So it gives the citizen that opportunity to exercise his right by coming out to vote. Now, in respect to the COVID pandemic, while we're talking about the hybrid elections, UHRC, first of all, is very concerned about the effect of COVID in the enjoyment of human rights and freedoms. And just as human rights are universal, the COVID pandemic is also a universal issue. And so it needs an approach. So we join hands to support the guidelines by the Ministry of Health to ensure that COVID cannot spread. People cannot contact the disease. So much as we're talking about elections, the hybrid elections basically means that if people are going to vote, they should be able to observe the SOPs, ensure that they put on their masks, ensure that they sanitize, ensure that all the necessary requirements are in place so that people do not contract COVID. Now, when you talk about elections, the human rights issues, the elections, like we said, is intertwined and related to human rights. Like the right to vote is expressly provided for in Article 39, which we previously discussed here comprehensively. And the exercise of the right to vote has a bearing on many other rights, many other human rights, like freedom of conscience, freedom of movement, freedom of expression, freedom to associate and assemble, the right for political parties to participate in elections, to participate in political organizations, to enjoy equal protection within the law, to enjoy self-determination and effective legal redress. So, Arnold, when we talk about these rights, they are linked to elections. And some of these rights are affected by the hybrid nature of the elections we are going to have in the country. So what are we saying? Much as we are going to have the hybrid elections, there are new innovative ways of conducting these elections. And the Electoral Commission has given guidelines on how elections will be conducted with the SOPs in place. So basically, in view of this, elections, if they are well managed, it has got the potential of promoting and safeguarding human rights of citizens in this country. So for this reason, as Uganda Human Rights Commission, we have positioned ourselves and prepared to ensure that we are able to monitor the elections. We have come up with the early warning mechanisms because we want citizens to know where to go to seek redress when their rights are violated. We are working together with other partner institutions. We have a close link and relationship with the Electoral Commission, and we're going to be working on this together. So basically about the rights involved in these hybrid elections, there are those that I've mentioned, and we appeal to citizens out there to basically know what their rights and obligations are so that we have peaceful, free, fair, and safe elections in Uganda. Thank you very much.
Doctor, you've touched on the issue of, well, there are two keywords that you've highlighted. One is stake. You know, the Uganda Human Rights Commission has a stake. Well, so does do so many citizens, the Electoral Commission, so many other facets that come in here that do have a stake. And the other is an interesting sentence that I'm picking up on is if well managed. And this leads me to another stakeholder who is arguably a big one, which is, who is rather, the Electoral Commission. Now, there's been some comments here and there on some Ugandans who might not be able to exercise their right to vote. Maybe they're in the diaspora. Does the Human Rights Commission get the sense that the Independent Electoral Commission has done enough leading up to this election to have a free, fair, safe election?
Thank you very much, Arnold. Like I said, the Electoral Commission has issued guidelines from time to time, and we have just seen the roadmap out. The Electoral Commission has tried its best to ensure that Ugandans are actually prepared for these elections. The challenge people are raising out there is the issue of the hybrid nature of the elections. How is the hybrid nature of the elections going to be conducted in the country? And that is the reason why we are here this evening, Arnold, because the Uganda Human Rights Commission are our partners. We are supposed to conduct civic education while they do conduct the voter education. And in terms of preparedness, the Electoral Commission has equipped its staff. The Electoral Commission has from time to time issued guidelines on how the elections should be managed. The Electoral Commission has tried to sensitize the people ahead of time before these elections actually take place. The issue you raised on whether the Ugandans in the diaspora are able to vote, I think I would request my director, Kamadi, to help me to respond to that, because I've not addressed my mind to it, and I cannot just, you know.
No.
Yes,
it's through these sentences that you put forward, and there were key words in there.
Yes.
Words like, well, a stake, you know, and definitely each Ugandan, each citizen should be able to exercise that particular right that you allude to,
Yes.
let alone if managed well, you know, sentences like that, and it just came to the top of my mind. Let me bring you in, Director Kamadi. The issue around Ugandans in the diaspora, definitely there's so many Ugandans living abroad, and maybe you could just touch on that issue, and then I'll follow up after.
Well, thank you very much. Ugandans living abroad have a right to vote. But Article 59 of the Constitution that guarantees the right to vote also talked about other aspects, like every citizen has a duty to register to vote. But also it prescribes that Parliament shall put in place the necessary laws. So as we speak, recently there was a court decision that provided for Ugandans living in the diaspora to vote, and also prisoners.
Yes.
But that, it is one thing having a court decision and another executing it and implementing whatever has been said there. Unfortunately, the decision came up during the lockdown, actually, when the Electoral Commission had completed aspects of voter registration, updating the voters register and that kind of thing. And recently we were informed by the Electoral Commission that they applied to court for the stay of execution, and therefore they requested that that particular aspect will have to be looked into in a subsequent election, because it requires to put in place an enabling legal framework. Yes, a prisoner has a right to vote.
Yes.
But if one registers from Luzira, and now by the time of voting, he or she has left Luzira, is back home in Kabale, how do you go about it? Or if one is registered from within the prison and is transferred, because the Uganda Prison Service keeps transferring inmates. They have what they call reception centers. You can be received in Lira, and then you serve the rest of your sentence from Kisoro. So you need an enabling legal framework in order to implement that. So the right is there, but there is no enabling legal framework that explains the what, how, when. So it is not going to be possible in this. We are calling it forthcoming because it has not yet taken place, but more or less we are already in the election year, because every other passing day we are moving towards the election, with yesterday the Electoral Commission telling us exactly when these elections are going to take place. It's not very far from now. So whereas Ugandans abroad, Ugandans in prison have the right to vote, I think it's important for us as Ugandans to appreciate that ample time is needed to sort out all these aspects before these people can enjoy their right to vote.
But Director Kamadi, sorry, this is quite an intriguing topic. I know it just came off the bat, but I'm very fascinated by the fact that if post-1986 we had our first election in 1996, obviously then it wasn't multiple parties. It was just basically one ticket, and the incumbent won by the NRM/A won by what? Close to 72%. If we had an election then, why then would it take close to, what, 24 years for the court decision to happen, let alone people in the diaspora or in the prisons to then be remembered in this particular election. Why the gap? I'm just baffled by this. You two are the legal men.
You might be one of the problems. I want to think you've been here since 1995.
Yes, I am an old man.
It took a citizen to go to court to have this realized. So you and me and any other body could have done it.
So the problem is with Uganda.
Yeah, exactly. You see, these provisions of the Constitution have to be operationalized. And the court that made the decision the other day, it was moved. The courts are moved, you know. So, and if you realize there are so many aspects in the Constitution that require to be operationalized, and it takes someone to move it to happen. So we have all been here. Nobody had thought about taking this forward. But now some active citizens came up and said, you know, these people have been disenfranchised for a long time. Yeah, so
it's quite fascinating. Just to remind some of our viewers, well, all our viewers and whoever is watching online, we will be able to take some of your questions in the second part of this particular talk show. As always, you can get in touch with us on Facebook and Twitter. That is NTV Uganda. And of course, our phone lines. I'll be able to pass on those particular questions and comments to our very erudite panelists today. Let me come back to you, Director Kamadi. The issues around COVID-19, where we find ourselves, of course, the scientific campaign, as it's been dubbed, and ultimately the election taking place in the format that we're used to, predating 1996. Give me a sense of whether or not you and the Uganda Human Rights Commission see windows here that some people might take advantage of to undo other people's rights vis-a-vis the election process.
Why we are focusing on safeguarding human rights during this hybrid election, you see, the entire electoral process is a human rights issue. Article 59 talks about the right to vote. Now, Article 20, it is the primary responsibility of the state to protect human rights in Uganda. So through voting, you are in essence putting the state we are talking about in place. Because when the current term of office of government expires on 12th May next year, then we will be waiting for those who will have gone through these elections we are preparing and planning for to be sworn in. And then they will form the social contract between the citizens of Uganda and themselves. They will proceed and preside over payment of taxes, and in turn Ugandans will need service delivery, which most of these social services are human rights issues: education, health, security, name it. Therefore, safeguarding human rights in the electoral process, you are in essence providing a fertile environment for the next government whose primary responsibility is to protect and promote human rights. Now, COVID-19 comes in a way which is unprecedented. We are used to massive rallies, running around, dancing kadodi and other sorts of campaign aspects. But now there are restrictions. Now, it is very important for the duty bearers involved in this, the Electoral Commission, the Uganda Police, and other actors, to ensure that in this challenging environment, we should not use it to curtail rights and freedoms. That is the most important thing. Because we have actors who rush to talk about limitations of human rights in order to suit their interests, in order to subjugate others. No. The limitations which have been brought about by COVID-19 are well understood by everybody, and it is here our appeal. Because there were debates shortly before the Electoral Commission came up to say in June now that elections are going to take place. A number of people were calling for postponement of elections and etc. But now that it became clear that we are going ahead, the Electoral Commission has been consistent on Article 61 of the constitution. They have to organize the elections. How do we go about it? We have actors like the Uganda Police Force. The Uganda Police is supposed to maintain law and order. Now, when it comes to policing elections, and yesterday the Electoral Commission informed the country, candidates are encouraged to campaign through media, but also physical meetings of 70 people in a given place. Now, this needs to be managed very well to ensure that the 70 that have been okayed are actually mobilized and organized without undue interference. But also, the political actors should not go beyond what they have been guided to do. But also, the police should ensure that they simply facilitate this as opposed to stopping it. It is a requirement under Article 221 of the Constitution for security agencies to observe human rights while executing their duties. And this is very, very critical. Therefore, we would like to see a campaign period where everybody is guarding against contracting COVID, but also at the same time facilitating the political actors to reach out to their people. Because the primary aim in the campaign is for those who have stood for various political offices to send out their messages so that people can choose from an informed point of view. So it would be disastrous if even these small meetings are interfered with, like we sometimes see.
I want to bring in Dr. Achan here, because I think you've painted quite a wholesome picture of what the norm should be, what this should look like. But still, in this lockdown, we saw the local defense units, the LDUs, battering people left, right, and center, pregnant woman falling off a border, you know, and then they had to be taken back to be schooled in matters around human rights, quote unquote. So I like that you bring in Article 221, I think.
Yes.
I want to bring in also Dr. Achan to just try and paint this picture. We've seen security agencies fall short in this particular lockdown. How then do we entrust them enough to make sure that this 70 is well adhered to without curtailing it? Do you see where I'm sitting here? I'm sitting on the fence. In the same year, the same security agencies was seen beating a woman off a border as she's going to a health center.
Thank you very much, Arnold. We, at the Commission, we have taken note of that as well. But just to let you know and to let the citizens out there know that as the Uganda Human Rights Commission, we have a partnership with the security agencies, with the army, with the Uganda Prisons Force, and with the police. When these cases come up, you know, human beings, we are not perfect. There are individuals from among the LDUs who violated people's rights as individuals. And because of that partnership, you might have noted or realized that these matters were adequately handled by the security court-martial, and also the security chiefs came up to apologize, and there was some compensation actually made for some people whose rights got violated during that time. But nevertheless, I think it's important for citizens out there to also understand the context within which the lockdown came up. It was to safeguard their own rights. Although there are instances where the case of the pregnant mother going to the health center and then getting assaulted by, it's very, very regrettable, but action was taken. At the Commission, we kept on receiving complaints as well. Complaints, similar complaints, and investigating them and taking action. And like I told you, as elections are coming, we also expect that violations may occur. That's why we're here to tell Ugandans we are advocating for peaceful elections. We would want things to be done in a systematic manner. We would like the laws to be adhered to, And that's why I said earlier we have positioned ourselves ready to receive the complaints, election-related information and complaints, ready to monitor the elections, ready to take action when people's rights are violated as a method of doing the early warning. And also secondly, we also intend to do a mapping of elections hotspot areas. Those areas we know violations easily occur from, those areas where we keep, you know, which are notorious for human rights violations, and we keep taking action. When we get a case, a complaint from the hotspot area, we swing in action. Like I told you, we have a desk within the UPDF. We'll communicate right to them and say, how come this has happened? What is it that the security members can do in order to redress this matter? So we are mindful about the rights of citizens, and we're also saying that as citizens, they have responsibility to ensure that they do not violate other people's rights, responsibility to ensure that they remain law-abiding, so that there are no skirmishes and clashes between the citizens and the security chiefs. But for those examples you gave are highly regrettable, and we have handled some of those cases within the commission, and action has been taken by the relevant security institutions.
Definitely, Dr. Chan. Director Kamadi, let me bring you back. You paint this picture. Just try and sum up where she's left off.
Well, thank you very much. They say however much apples grow and you get yields, they are usually some bad apples. Now, sometimes one or two people within the Uganda police force, they do things which are not human rights based, and they paint a picture that they of the whole institution being like that. But like doctor has said, those who violated people's rights during COVID, the LODUs you are talking about, they have really been dealt with. Kasese, Mitiana, Amuru, and all these cases are documented. Even recalling them for more capacity building in human rights was itself commendable, and therefore that was in a step in the right direction. But now going forward to the campaigns that are going to begin, I think political actors listening to us and other duty bearers, it is important to note that during campaigns, it is not a requirement of the police to give permission to conduct campaigns.
Please talk to us more about this. Yes.
This is very critical, because that's where challenges start from. Soon you will hear police officer X saying you have not been permitted. No. The moment people are nominated for elections, now the body responsible to manage their affairs is the Electoral Commission, because they draw a campaign program, harmonize it, and agree on it with the Electoral Commission. The Uganda police is there to maintain law and order with or without elections. So when it comes to campaigns, yes, it's a heightened area, but really the management of electoral affairs is a preserve of the Electoral Commission.
I'm going to ask you a question here before you continue. Is this pre or in the aftermath of the Public Management Act that was, and the ruling that was, that actually showed that it was passed, it does aggrieve some of the rights of other parties?
No, but that ruling was appealed against, if I'm not mistaken. It was, yes, or there is an intention to appeal.
Okay.
Yeah, so the status quo remains. But even before then, it had been a contentious issue whether if people are going to demonstrate or to freely associate, they need police permission or to notify police. The aspect is human rights are inherent. We are born with them. Therefore, it's like saying I'm going to ask for police for permission from police to leave. The right to life is not granted by police. or I'm going to make an application to police to talk. No, that's not the issue. So the starting point, we should understand that human rights are inherent. Actually, it is clearly captured under Article 20 of the Constitution. They are not granted by the state or any authority. We are born with them. Now, the role of the state is to guarantee the enjoyment of these rights. And that's where Uganda police comes in. Because you cannot wish away their role, which is really commendable. They are people who don't want to observe the law. Then the police comes in. But it is not a requirement to give permission, you know. Now, when police is notified, how they respond is what matters. And that's where the confusion usually starts from. But if everybody played his part of the bargain, there wouldn't be a problem. But specifically coming to campaigns, even the Political Parties and Organizations Act you are talking about does not require a registered political party to seek permission to do political activities. That should be clearly understood.
Director Kamadi, let me just put a pause there. Very fascinating verbs that you're using. Notified. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back with more as we do try to unpack the role of safeguarding human rights within the context of this particular hybrid election that we're having come February 2021. Right after this. 27 minutes to 5 p.m. Welcome back to this particular talk show. I'm Arnold Segawa. As we do talk about safeguarding human rights within the context of the hybrid election that we're having just next year, I'm joined by, to my left, Dr. Patricia Chan Okiria, who's a commissioner at Uganda Human Rights Commission, and to my extreme left, Director Bionabye Kamadi, who is the Director of Research, Education and Documentation at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Lady and the gentlemen, it was getting quite heated. I had a word, notify, you know, it should just be notified. That's, of course, regarding the Uganda police. So before we continue, do remember that you can get in touch with us. You can ask my panelists here a few questions here and there. Of course, be very brief. You can always call us on the numbers that are showing below right now. We'll be getting into that, well, in about 15 minutes. Let me come to you, Dr. Chan. Equal access to the media. Now, by and large, this has to be one election that we will tell our grandkids, and I'm sure they'll also pass on the message, where you have to actually rely on rather unorthodox means. Well, people would use the media before, but it wasn't the primary means of reaching the electorate. Give me a sense of what the biggest red lines are, or should I say the red flags that you are looking out for as the Uganda Human Rights Commission, well, that need not be overlooked.
Thank you very much, Arnold. The media lately has become inseparable from politics. And when we talk about the hybrid elections, we have gotten to a time when candidates need to rely heavily on the media for their campaigns. They need to rely on social media, they need to rely on the media houses, radio stations, and so on, to be able to conduct their campaigns and reach out to the voters and let the voters know what exactly they intend to do for them when they get to those positions of responsibility. So since the outbreak of COVID, you find that campaigns have been conducted mainly through media, through radios, through social media, through Facebook, through Zoom meetings, and so on. And a short while ago, Director Kamadi was saying the Electoral Commission, among the guidelines of the Electoral Commission is that for every meeting you should have about 70 people. So you find that there is a challenge there. The candidates are used to the traditional methods of campaigns. But here we are with the new innovative mechanisms of holding the hybrid elections. And they are supposed to use social media, they're supposed to use media houses. The area of concern for the Commission is the aspect of these media houses that are privately owned. Well, there are guidelines that there should be free access to the media. The ground should be leveled. All candidates should be able to access these media houses. But a challenge comes in where they are privately owned media houses. As a commission, we've been advocating with the Media Council, saying, you know, there should be guidelines on how these elections should be conducted, on how the candidates should be able to campaign within the media houses without discrimination. We are advocating for the fact that everybody should be given free access to these media houses. They should access the radio stations, they should access internet, they should be able to use social media, they should be able to do Zoom meetings and so on to reach out to the voters. But you find that the use of some of these media houses requires discipline on part of the candidates and discipline on part of the owners of the media houses.
Doctor, when you say discipline, I'm very intrigued because just yesterday a particular politician was dragged off the air for, I don't know if this counts for indiscipline, but it was because of his dress code. And he was wearing a red beret. And this leaves me wondering, does that count for indiscipline? The media now, well, 1960 arguably is a big year because that's the first presidential debate in the history of the democratic world. President Nixon taking on a young JFK. But now if security agencies can drag someone off the air because of what they're wearing, a red beret, how free is that then?
Those are the aspects the Commission is very concerned about. We are advocating for non-discrimination. We are saying everybody should be able to access these media houses. It is unfortunate if candidates are being dragged out of the media houses for those reasons, but I think it also requires investigations. What if this particular candidate had trampled on somebody's rights or violated the law? So I think we need to study that. We need to investigate and find out what exactly happened. Was it the issue of the red beret or he had committed some crimes earlier on? But when we talk about discipline, I'm looking at the issue of consciousness. It's important for the politicians to know the media platform with different, within which they want to reach out their messages. They need to know who exactly are their target groups. Do their target groups have access? Are they able to listen? Or it is just having a small coverage within a particular area and not reaching out to the entire constituency. Then the politicians also need to build strong support. They should establish their bases on social media by creating support groups. They can, and this will help them keep in touch with their supporters. It will help them be able to mobilize. It will help them to touch base with the people who they expect to vote for them. Then they need continuous engagement with the electorate. It's unfortunate where some people fail actually to engage continuously with the electorate for some reasons. You know, challenges to do with resources. Now there is voter bribery. We are also advocating against voter bribery. That means a poor person cannot be able to afford airtime to be on a media house to make his statements or to reach to his electorate and so on. So it comes with certain challenges. And we are saying, well, we want people to have equal access to these media houses. We want non-discrimination. We do not want to see others dragged out like the example you have given for just because of the dress code. But we are saying the ground should be leveled and everybody should have access to these media facilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Doctor. Let's take our first call. You're live on NTV. Very good afternoon.
Hello.
A very good afternoon. You're live on NTV. Who am I talking to? Right, we've lost him, but thanks for that, Doctor. You do create, it's definitely not fair to just conclude without getting all the facts. And it's still a developing story how someone was actually dragged from this particular media house. Let's take this particular call. You're live on NTV. Who am I talking to?
Hello.
Hello, how are you? A very good afternoon. You're live on NTV.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
This conduct is from Riyadh.
Yes, please.
Thank you for your presentation. And now my question to the Dean.
Right. Terrible. We've lost that one too. Let me bring you in, Director Kamadi, as we do delve into the calls coming in. The issue around duties and responsibilities. It is one thing. Okay, just before we delve into that, you're live on NTV. A very good afternoon. A very good afternoon. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. A question for my panelists today. Okay, I think we're having some technical challenges. Okay, you're back on. You're live on NTV. Right, Director Kamadi, let's continue with you. There's a lot of duties, yes, on one side for the voters and the electorate, and definitely also responsibilities. Just give me a sense of where we find ourselves right now vis-a-vis the candidates' role, you know, as role models and, of course, guiding voters. In our past sessions, we've had this debate around someone offering Ludo instead of going to the electorate and offering a manifesto and something concrete. Talk to me about this.
Well, in the enjoyment of human rights, like we have said before, we shall continue saying it, where your rights stop is where other people's rights begin from. And in the context of these elections now, it is important to understand that when the Electoral Commission says hold a meeting of 70 people, they have never said it before. So we all have a duty to prevent the spread of this infectious disease. And these are constitutional matters. Article 23 of the Constitution allows restriction of the right to personal liberty in order to prevent the spread of an infectious disease.
Yes.
Yeah. So really,
it's within the boundaries. Really.
It is within the boundaries, but we hear some voices trying to go against this kind of guidance, which is not good. I think as a starting point, whoever is involved in this election right now should work towards making the voters appreciate that these guidelines issued by the Electoral Commission have never been issued in previous elections where there was no COVID. Therefore, we all have a duty to respect the rights of others. And how do you respect the rights of others? In this particular case, if you've been told, actually it is even respecting your own right. If you've been told you don't go into a crowd of 500 people, you know, don't go there. So one of the things that needs to be appreciated right now is the fact that we can't gather massively because of the threat of COVID-19. Therefore, everybody should do, especially the political actors, they should send this message to their voters so that it is respected.
But Director Kamadi, then my question would be, this magic figure, which is 70 people, was there any consultation with the different stakeholders, with the Uganda Human Rights Commission being a massive stakeholder in this particular election?
Well,
were you consulted?
The mandate to organize elections is really with the Electoral Commission. They have had meetings with various stakeholders, including ourselves, although it was not particular on this particular matter.
Okay.
Yeah, but in their wisdom and with the guidance from the Ministry of Health, that's what they have come up with. Now, the best thing, if you think that is unreasonable, the channels of communication have not been closed. Yes, that is the best thing. We are talking about dialogue. It doesn't help to incite the population. It doesn't help to simply complain. Reach out to the EC with a view to reviewing what you think is not workable. And they are on record on listening to people's issues. That should be the message.
Spoken like a real gentleman, Director Kamadi.
But for starters, that is the guidance they have given. We should appreciate the context in which it has been given.
Let me come back to you, Doctor. The way forward, there's definitely a huge call on safeguarding human rights for everyone, as Director Kamadi has made very clear in the past 3 sessions. Where your rights end is where other people's rights actually commence. And this leaves me pondering of a way forward. Where does the Human Rights Commission find itself in this unprecedented time? It's bad enough elections, well, we've had credible elections in the past, but this is really unprecedented. But before you answer that, let's try and go to the call. You're live on NTV. A very good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Any questions for our particular panelists?
There's some people, sometimes there's no good.
We're having trouble hearing you. I think I was alluding to a particular candidate, but Dr. Achan, you could just give us the way forward.
Thank you very much, Arnold. As Uganda Human Rights Commission, we call on all eligible Ugandans to come out and exercise their rights when it comes to elections. And then another thing, the Uganda Human Rights Commission is open. We have got regional offices. We are open to receiving election-related complaints, complaints related to human rights violations during elections, and other complaints of people who are disgruntled with the systems, how if they are not well managed. So Ugandans should prepare to exercise their rights to vote. They should prepare to participate in choosing their own leaders, because they are very, very significant. Their responsibility is very, very important, because in the beginning I said power belongs to the people, and they should be able to come out to exercise their responsibilities as provided for in the Constitution by coming out to vote. And you find that leaders never have that responsibility if the people have not exercised that right in Article 1 of the Constitution. Government cannot be government until the people let them know they put them there. So nobody can rule over you except when you give them permission. And you give them this permission through your vote. But it is disappointing sometimes Ugandans just sit back and do not go to the polling station, and they are keen to wait and hear the results of the elections, and yet they did not participate. So Ugandans have to add their voice, not to attack government, but to help demand for improvement where there are gaps. If there are gaps in the way elections is being managed, there is a legal procedure within which it can be handled. So rather than fighting and antagonizing each other, I think they need to follow those procedures. They need to be able to encourage one another to come out, to ensure that justice is being done, to ensure that things are done in a streamlined manner. If there are any gaps, they can come out to challenge those gaps. And secondly, I think it's also important for the citizens out there to know that when their rights are violated, they should always run to the Uganda Human Rights Commission. Previously, there are comments where people are challenging us at where are you, what are you doing? We are working very hard for this country because we want people to enjoy their rights. We want people to feel the country. We want people to know that they're citizens in this country and they can benefit from the institutions that the country has. They can benefit from the responsibilities the different institutions are carrying out to ensure that service delivery is done in a very, very well organized manner. So we call on all actors in the electoral process to come out to ensure that the general public has to participate in elections in a free, fair and safe manner. And then we also appeal for calm and restraint and respect for each other's fundamental rights during and after elections. Because after elections, we still have to live. After elections, we still have to work. after elections, we still have to serve this country. So I would like also to remind members of the public that the exercise and enjoyment of rights and freedoms go hand in hand with duties and responsibilities, like it has been said earlier on. So when we come out to vote, we are actually exercising those responsibilities which we have as citizens of this country. Thank you very much.
Director Kamadi, how does one get redress in case they feel aggrieved in this particular poll?
Well, there are so many levels. Right now, in the process of nominations is still ongoing, like presidential nominations have not yet been conducted. There are those election-related complaints which should be taken to the Electoral Commission. Actually, every election-related complaint, there is a complaints desk at the Electoral Commission to handle. Now, there are those which are supposed to be determined by courts of law. The courts are also available. If there are human rights violations, like the doctor has said, don't take them to the Electoral Commission. Bring them to the Uganda Human Rights Commission.
But don't you get the sense that that's really where another issue is? People who are, many of us, myself included, are oftentimes oblivious to where what goes or where which square goes.
That's why we are talking about it here. Yeah. And for us, we receive everybody. Even if you came with a complaint that is not within our jurisdiction, we have referral pathways. We will refer you to the Electoral Commission. We will refer you to the Uganda Police. There are aspects of violence. Now, those ones are for the Uganda Police to handle, a criminality bordering on elections. So really, it is a multi-stakeholder engagement. But election-related complaints, Electoral Commission is there to handle. If there are criminal matters arising out of elections, it is a mandate of the Uganda Police Force. If it is human rights related issues, come to the Uganda Human Rights Commission. If it is corruption, bribery, take them to the Inspectorate of Government.
IGG.
Yes, yeah. So those are the state institutions available to handle these matters. Not everything is for the Electoral Commission. It depends on what aspect of the electoral process you are talking about.
As we wrap up, Dr. Achan, your final 2 cents.
Thank you very much, Arnold. I would like to call upon Ugandans to embrace the electoral process, to understand that the elections are going to be conducted in a hybrid manner, to come out to vote, not to just sit back and wait for results, because this is our country. We support the country by taking on responsibilities, taking on our constitutional responsibilities like voting and choosing our leaders. And also, like I said earlier on, government cannot be government if you have not exercised your right, if to let them know and put that you are the one who put them there through your vote. So nobody can rule over you except you give them the permission, and this permission is exercised, is obtained through their votes. So fellow Ugandans, when it comes to elections, come out, exercise your right, and vote as a citizen of this country, because your vote counts. Your vote demonstrates that you have participated in choosing your leader who will be your voice out there in Parliament. Thank you very much.
Director Kamadi?
Well, power belongs to the people, who shall exercise it through regular, free, periodic elections. And this particular election is not like the previous ones, and therefore we need to safeguard human rights. I would like to urge all actors, especially our friends in the police, to facilitate the election, not to curtail the enjoyment of the right to vote. The right to vote is very, very critical, because it sets the parameters for the enjoyment of other rights. Like I said at the beginning, it is after putting a government in place that it is enjoined under Article 20 to safeguard, to guarantee the enjoyment of the rights of everybody. Therefore, the quality of people we put in positions of leadership, it matters a lot. Therefore, let us embrace what the Electoral Commission is doing. Let us support them. Let us not be complainants. You know, there is a challenge where some of us only want to look at the weaknesses and you don't appreciate the positive strides being taken. And let us have a culture of knowing that in any election there are winners and losers. The mentality of I must win and no other option is also a cause of violence and human rights violations. So let us play to the rules and do what is within our means and safeguard human rights, the entire spectrum of human rights, economic, social, cultural, political, in this electoral process.
Many thanks for that, Director Kamadi. Less politicizing, definitely going forward. Many thanks to my panelists. To my left, Dr. Patricia Achano-Kiria, who is Commissioner at the Uganda Human Rights Commission, and to my extreme left, Mr. Abdinabe Kamadi, who is the Director, Research, Education and Documentation at the Uganda Human Rights Commission. That's what we'll leave it for this particular panel discussion, as we've been touching the issues around safeguarding human rights within the context of the hybrid election that is set to take place come February 2021. I'm Arnold Segawa. It's just a minute to 5 p.m. That's where we leave it. But more on the same. We'll be deliberating on these issues around the electoral process, what you and I can do to make sure that we actually do have a free, fair, not forgetting, safe election. This is NTV Uganda, and have a good afternoon.